Hi, I'm Bob Ethington.
And I'm Nick Nicholas.
And this is From Akron and Beyond. Well, folks, how are y'all doing today? Nick and I are happy today to be here and be interviewing a guy we wanted to have on the show really from the inception of the program. And
all good things, cool things that happen in Akron.
Exactly.
Continuation.
And this is one of the coolest and definitely a unique business in the Akron area. And people who have been there will know exactly what I'm talking about. And people who haven't yet maybe heard of it or been there, well, you'll want to go after we do the show, I think. I'm talking about the Bomb Shelter. And we are here with its owner, Kevin Royer. Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
And so welcome to the show. Now, we were talking before we went on air that my wife is always afraid when I'm going to the bomb shelter because she's afraid what I might bring back. And that's the kind of place it is because you go in there probably not even knowing what you're looking for, and you'll find something that you weren't looking for that you have to have.
In fact, one section of my house is furnished from there. You know, we were talking earlier about old Akron history and Rex's Salvage. Well, Rex's Salvage had some cool stuff, but not like this, you know.
But Kevin, you're the better person to discuss this. So tell us what the bomb shelter is.
Well, it's thanks for the kind words too.
Sure.
It's kind of it was a little more salvagey when it started, and now it's kind of mutated into like a slice of Akron because really most of the stuff in the store has come from just within 10 miles out from the store. So it's you can come there and it's kind of like a history of our I guess industrial might that we had here.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, with all the things that people could afford to buy here that they couldn't even afford to buy in a lot of other areas because we were such an industrial powerhouse.
Right.
So and then it's set up or curated, I guess is one way to put it, kind of like a museum. That's we've had people discuss it like that, and we try to do that. So you can enjoy it, and everything's kind of in vignettes or in its little areas, and 99% of it is for sale. So you can take it home, but and a lot of people do, and sometimes I unfortunately take a little too much home myself.
I would imagine that would be it's a dangerous aspect.
It does get that way, but I tell people, look, you can come to the store and enjoy, and a lot of people do, and live the experience and spend a couple hours there, and then go home and use it as a museum for Akron, and it does not bother me because what we're kind of in the memory business.
Yeah.
And some people don't need any more memories at home because they've already filled up the cache or whatever.
Right.
That's how we look at it, though.
Well, that's a beautiful way of looking at it.
Yeah, it's great. I always bring out of town people there. I remember brought one of my wife's cousins, and he bought a replica of one of those stone statues on Easter Island. I mean, it probably weighed I don't know how many pounds, but get anything you want.
We should say, where is the bomb shelter?
We're located in East Akron at 923 Bank Street, at the intersection of Bookdale and Bank, or East Bookdale and Bank.
Okay. Now, how long has it been there?
We actually opened in late 2010.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, because we had the building and used it as a warehouse before that, and we had made some structural changes in the way on some of the businesses we were doing, and we became more of a property company, and that particular building was a little difficult to repurpose because it has low ceilings and stuff.
Yeah.
And it has multiple tenants in it, which we still do have other businesses in there. So we just decided. I at that point, excuse me. I met up with another gentleman, and that's how the concept kind of came about between us.
Mm-hmm.
And then he left after a few years, and it became, it mutated a little bit more into what it is now.
The other couple businesses you have, one's another cool place. Vintage audio place.
Yeah, Worcester Vintage Audio.
I remember I bought a 1930s RCA radio from you, then took it down and had them fix it.
Oh, good. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
People who have not been to the bomb shelter are probably, we're giving them a vague idea
Yeah, it's
of
very
what's
vague.
in there, but it's kind of hard to, it is kind of hard to describe unless you actually go visit, which I do recommend. But I mean, for instance, Nick and I actually dropped in on Kevin a week ago to see if he'd be on the show or not.
Cold called.
Yeah, Nick was all excited. It was like, what was the TV show?
The American Pickers, where they just pick a place and they knock on the door. Hey, you got this? Yeah. We got Kevin.
But like for instance, so you go in there and in your office there must be hundreds of the old rubber company ashtrays with the tires around them. And now that's a memory awakener right there to anyone who grew up in this area or is from Akron, because probably many of people's parents had those ashtrays. I know my dad did.
I
worked
have
for
them still.
Goodyear. Yeah.
Well, I think that in Akron, just about everyone touched rubber, and I think it's just they were, as the houses were closed down and your Uncle Jim or somebody passed away and their house moved into another house, because
Right.
that's you end up with these multi-generational piles of stuff in the houses,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually we or somebody or an estate sailor gets access to it, and it disperses out again, hopefully to find new homes. But yeah, we go into a lot of houses, and I'd say half of them have a tire ashtray.
Really?
Especially in Akron.
Yeah.
Because it's just the history here. Yeah.
So I know
Right.
people call you and ask you if you are interested in buying some of the things they have, but you actually do go to estates or?
Well, yeah, usually we don't really do estate sales because, but we go to an estate that's being closed down.
That's what I'm. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So not every sale can easily be, liquefied or whatever in a timely manner, and sometimes there's time restraints, or the person doesn't want to go through the trouble of having a typical estate sale and using an estate sale type situation. And then some estate sale companies actually buy or call us to come after the sale or before the sale, sometimes even. And to look at the stuff and buy some of the things too. We don't normally do that, but it's it really, our goal is to try to find a new home for all this stuff. I mean, it's just it's almost can be a little upsetting, the amount of stuff that ends up in a roll off, and these when they're closed, because the typical pattern is a person passes. They have to get rid of the house. They sell the house with contents. Sometimes the person who bought it with the intention of the house being rehabbed.
Yeah,
they're
right.
going to go in and gut it. So it's going to be pretty dirty in there for a while. And sometimes that person that we may have a relationship with, they'll call us and say, "Come and try to save as much as you can, and we'll buy it from them," which helps them pay for some of their restoration. But a lot of the times it's just, ends up in a landfill, which is just sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we try to make the stuff cool again by displaying it the right way, because I mean, a lot of the stuff we have, if it was just in a garage sale, it just doesn't have the spark.
Right.
But if you put it into an environment where people can go, "Wow, I could see this being in my environment," and then they will be, they'll pay for it, which helps us pay for, people to clean it and dress it and make sure it finds a new home.
Right.
Yeah, we're just like a big humane society.
I was going to say,
For
it
stuff.
sounds a lot like
For stuff.
For stuff. Yeah,
That's really cool.
We're gonna have to kill this lamp if somebody doesn't.
Yeah.
We don't want to do this.
Talk about that. We a couple of our friends actually worked there for Kevin, and one of them was working. Tell what they were working on.
Well, he was rewiring a lamp that had come in. That the base of the lamp was a naked Burt Reynolds, kind of from the Playgirl magazine, thinking Nick really wanted this lamp, and I had to say, I'm not sure your wife's going to like that, Nick.
And it's not a very good representation of
No.
It's kind of odd.
And it does have more hair than I think he actually has.
I was going to say that his head's a little out of proportion.
And, too,
but it's stuck in my mind, obviously.
A lot of people don't know that you have such a vast quantity of used vinyl, records. I mean, people can come in there and spend hours looking at that alone.
Yeah, well, actually, the way we operate is we own everything at the bomb shelter, and we don't consign anything except for the records and some of the paper posters and things like that. Mm-hmm. And those are actually owned by Bob Early, the guy that does like Rockin' on the River. Yeah, he's we kind of consider him our crazy uncle. Yeah, and he's a very nice man. Mm-hmm. But he is he does the Rockin' on the River up in Lorraine still. But he also just likes to buy and sell records, and he loves like autograph stuff. It's just a passion of his to more buy and sell it than to collect it. I would say. But he's roped me into a couple of times where I've gone out with my truck to help him bring back the ridiculous amount of vinyl that he's purchased. It's one of them was a 2 truckload deal. Yeah, he's got a lot of records and he sells a lot of records. It's good, but they're consigned. We take a small cut to process them and pay, do the sales tax, all the things that that a typical business would have to do.
Right.
So he doesn't have to because he wants to be on the hunt.
That sounds like a great thing to do.
I know.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah.
Do you still have? I haven't. My wife was there a couple of weeks ago, and she bought a couple lamps. But I haven't been there in over a year, except to see you last week. Do you still have that the vintage TVs there?
Yes,
and it's like a little museum.
It is a museum. Actually, that belongs to Dave Blewett.
Dave.
Dave. Yeah, he has, I think, Sunshine Estate Sales now.
Okay.
He used to work for, I think, Marcia Zaremka, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, she since passed, but he used to have a TV museum in downtown Akron at the Chemstress building. It used to be called the Metropolitan Building next to the library.
Yeah.
And
that's how I knew him.
Yeah, and he had some famous people come in there and look at him and stuff like that. And he had a lot more TVs than it's been pared down a bit. He ended up had them at the basement of the O'Neill's building, which and because the city uses part of that for storage, and then they had to change, so he had to get them all out of there, and then they ended up I ended up getting them at the bomb shelter. And I just thought, we just need to display these because there's some really interesting TVs there.
Oh, you're not kidding. Yeah.
And then he brought in a bunch of lunch boxes and board games, which today the problem, like first we had it set up in another place, part of the store, and it was a static display. Mm-hmm. Nothing, no TV worked. It was just like you walked in and it was a quiet museum.
Right.
And I for a while I'd watch all these usually young kids. When I say that, 30 and under, they would walk by, usually holding their phone as they walked by, and would not really notice it because they didn't really. I don't think they put it all together that these were actually TVs that people would watch. Because it just a lot of them have never seen a picture tube TV now.
Right.
It's all flat.
Right.
So we moved it into the area that it's in now, and then which we are planning on redoing it again to make it a little bit more interactive, but. We took some TVs that weren't worth anything and salvaged and put newer, 80s picture tubes in them, and then hooked that up to operate so that we could play older stuff that would be, displayed on there. And then people, it kind of clicked, and everybody just started, commenting on it, and the younger kids were more interested in it. So we're kind of part of the museum aspect.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of a goal of mine is to find somebody who's in museum sciences or something at Kent State. Maybe they have that there. And have them do a project turning it into something that's even better.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Because
Right,
we have TVs that have channel 1 on them, which is like 1947. That's they got rid of that after that.
Yeah.
We have a projection TV from like 1948 that I think it's an RCA, and it was I think the screen is like 24 inches across, and that's the that's the biggest thing you could get at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was designed for bars or hotels.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that I'm not 100% sure, but I think in today's dollars, it was like a $14,000 TV if you looked at what they paid for it then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so that's a passion, but I mean, TVs, it's just now, I mean, my son's 20 or going to be 20 here, and he is just, I mean, he doesn't really watch anything unless it's on a really small screen.
Right.
And I think that's
yeah.
what most kids do now.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, it's a whole different world.
Yeah.
Well, you've reminded me of that because, I and we're not going to be allowed. My wife's not going to be allowed to listen to this particular program, but I have a great amount of books, a great amount of albums and CDs and what have you. I definitely have the collector's mentality. It was no surprise I was a librarian, for 35 years. And but the reason I bring this up is because my kids, now they're all adults now, but they are the opposite. They don't want to collect anything. They don't want, they don't want to, and they've lived fascinating lives. They've been very peripatetic. They've traveled all over the world and stuff, so good for them. But they also, now that they've all kind of somewhat settled down a little bit, that's just nothing that at all occurs to them. It's like, why would I want to own that? Why would I want to have that album or whatever? Now,
two of my kids are the same way.
Yeah, it's not the same, but it's definitely kind of a generational thing, I think, because and you remind me of it when you said the words landfill, because my daughter has out and out said I'd better go through and get rid of some of this stuff while I'm around because. When the day comes, she's just putting it all out on the curb. And, she doesn't say that to be mean. She just is saying it because, that's not how she lives her life. She's not going to spend a whole lot of time with that.
Yeah.
Anyway, you must have seen this, right? I mean, you must have seen, everything you're talking about in these collections is the kind of thing that, in 50 years may not even exist because people won't be holding on to things like that.
Well,
on TV,
yes, that's exactly right. And I mean, I've met people who collect washing machines. Mm-hmm. I know a person who collects stoves.
You had some cool stoves that are different.
That actually has, they're in the garage, they're in the basement, they're in the spare room. I don't
really?
know. Oh yeah, it's but see that stuff takes a lot of real estate.
Sure,
and it's not easy to move generationally.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think that's the problem today is with the younger mindset is that they don't like a lot of stuff. They want to be light.
Exactly.
They move around a lot. Their jobs, they'll have 10 jobs by the time they're 30, 35. It's just things are operating on a completely different wavelength than they did when the 80s, 70s. When people could possibly retire from the same job that they start.
Sure.
So they're more on the move and they want to they don't want to collect things that just sit on a shelf. Mm-hmm. So grandma's Fenton collection, the precious moments are terrible.
Oh yeah,
and collector plates. I've never seen something that it was such an absorption of money that never got anywhere.
Things that are made to collect are not worth anything.
Exactly, and you can't even use them to eat off of because
they're not microwave safe.
Well, they say right on the back, they're the way they make them, they probably have lead in them. Not for food, human consumption. But they do like a set of dishes from maybe the 60s that they can use. They love to have a piece of furniture like that, maybe Danish modern walnut, that they can put their TV on, so or their record player, because vinyl is definitely hot,
right?
Or store their albums or whatever. But so that's what and especially like vintage clothing, they want to be able to wear it. It's not like they're going to hang it on a wall and say, "Oh, look at this beautiful dress from 1963."
Right.
So I think that's how I think we've been very successful, is because we've kind of bridged that gap between the non-collector and making them still need it, because we found a way to make them want it in their lifestyle.
They use it,
and part of that's, we're not the ones that started all that. It's kind of been a trend for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
But it's definitely stronger now, and people don't want to buy fast fashion. They don't want to buy. And fast fashion, in my mind, can be stuff even at Target. It's designed to do a purpose, and then when you move, you can throw it away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not, it's not worth moving. Yeah.
And Kevin, you were kind enough to have the Akron Sound Museum there for a few years.
Yes.
And that was really nice of you to do that.
Yeah, I was kind of sad to see it go, but Calvin was running that after I think Wayne, if I'm not mistaken, passed away.
Yes, it was Wayne Beck and Calvin Ryman.
Yeah. And he was very passionate about it. Calvin, I think, was I think it became kind of a burden for him because there was no help.
Yeah, it's just
it was just so much, and I donated a TV and kind of forced him, I guess, to make a memory stick of all the bands playing in Akron. So we had that playing, and because once again, it's the static display.
Right.
It had no interaction, and people just don't operate well these days on static. So we tried to add. We just used a 45-inch widescreen TV, just put that in there, put a memory stick in it, and every day we just turn it on and it would loop, all these bands, and then they didn't have like names on them. I was like, okay, well, can you superimpose names on them? So he found somebody to do that. So he did it, and we ran that for quite a while. But now all that stuff went to the Akron Historical Center.
Yeah.
Right. Well, ultimately, I believe it's donated to the Akron Library.
Yeah, library. I think they're controlling it. Yeah.
But they are working with the Historical Society, and then there's going to be a Akron History Center downtown is in the works, and some of that stuff is going to be there on display. So that's pretty exciing. I'm
very happy that they're going to do that, because it really was an important part of the gritty, growth of Akron. I remember when the bank and all that stuff was downtown.
Absolutely.
And it was
Nick and I were there.
The Anthony Wayne,
the Honey Wayne.
Yeah. So, and Carl and Bob's Elbow Grill. That was my favorite bar. Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'm not, and just to make it clear, I'm not saying that there's any right or wrong about this different mindset and collecting.
Oh,
it's just a different aesthetic approach, really. And
different times, really.
Yeah, in a way, I envy that. When I do look, sometimes when I look at all the stuff I have, I'm like, yeah, it can be a burden.
It's a burden.
But then on the other hand, if I didn't have it, I'd be like,
what are you going to
do? Because I love it. So it's a strange thing. Well, okay, you say the bomb shelter has been open since 2010. Correct?
Yes.
So if you don't mind, let's delve back into your history a little bit. Now, what were you doing before that? Are you from Akron originally?
I was born at St. Thomas. Yep.
Oh, okay. All right.
Soon to be a pile of rubble.
Okay, right. And, tell us a little bit about your upbringing, if you don't mind.
Well, I grew up in Akron, ended up in the Falls, went to Cuyahoga Falls High.
Okay.
Graduated in 83. I worked. I went to Akron U for a little bit. Akron was quite in transition, and then with all the rubber companies closing, so jobs were kind of difficult. I ended up working. Actually, a friend of mine from high school, his dad was a union projectionist, so we ended up we both ended up working for the union.
Oh.
So we worked at all the different movie theaters and stuff like that. And then through that, we worked as stagehands, which is the same union, but just a different local.
Okay.
And worked in Cleveland, too, for that quite a bit. My final job was working for that was at Lowe State in the Falls.
Oh,
I think last time I worked as a projectionist was in 92.
Okay.
And then in 88, the same person that got me in the projection union, Rob Krause was his name. He's still a business partner of mine today. Him and I developed Norca futon stores.
Oh, okay.
And so we started opening those up, and then we ended up owning a factory in Pennsylvania that made furniture.
Really?
And it was quite an operation.
Yeah.
And then we did at the end of 2008 with the Great Recession. That was quite a that and competition from abroad, because the furniture industry is easily offshored.
Yeah.
And we decided to turn ourselves into something else, and we kind of became a property company.
Oh.
We closed all that down and
Closed all the stores?
Yeah, and became a property company, because we ended up buying properties because we had stores in Cincinnati, Cleveland.
Oh, wow.
Had one in Chicago that wasn't exactly the best. Pittsburgh, Columbus. So we had quite a bit going on for about 20 years there. Yeah.
And he kept the Akron, Norca name on all those locations?
Yeah, they were all Norca futon.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
Akron spelled backwards.
That's right. Yeah, and then now the only things we have left are really the two buildings in Akron. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I've this as my wife calls it, kind of my retirement job.
It's sort of a labor of love, right? Like
it is. I mean, it's not a huge, terribly profitable, but we try to pay. We have about 9 other people working there.
Oh, okay.
And half of them are full time, so it takes a lot to keep the place,
Sure.
looking right and processing everything, going out and picking up stuff, So I mean, just this last Saturday, Billy, the guy that runs our cleanup and intake department, he and I went out to a house that was being closed down in West Akron, and ended up buying a whole bunch of furniture. And so I guess we got our Planet Fitness workout that morning, and and then worked the day. So
I remember during COVID, when you were coming back from, we were all coming back from it, you had minimum, days that you're open, as opposed, compared to before. Mm-hmm. So you back to normal hours now? Or
well, we never did go back 100%. We were open Thursday, Friday, Saturday for about 3 months, and then we added Sunday back by popular demand. And then we ran that for, I don't know, a year and a half or so, and we just recently opened on Monday. Oh. So now we're open Thursday through Monday. Okay. And then, but everybody's pretty, they're just like, I think we can just live with not being open Tuesday and Wednesday.
Sure.
And we buy, we have people come bring a lot of stuff to us to sell us stuff. Right. So we do that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday by appointment. Mm-hmm. So even though we're not open to the public, there's an awful lot going on still. We still have 5 people working on Wednesday when we're technically closed.
Right.
It's just that it just takes so much to get all these, because somebody comes in and they buy an item or two from a display, and Allie, who's our stager, and she is the magic. She makes the place look the way it does.
Okay.
She just she'll pull that whole thing apart in one day and have it completely rebuilt in a different setting. It's just amazing. Yeah, she's very good.
Special talent.
Very good.
This is From Akron and Beyond. I'm Bob Ethington with co-host Nick Nicholas, and we are talking to Kevin Royer, who's the owner of the Bomb Shelter here in Akron. So when you opened the Bomb Shelter then in 2010, had you already been accruing a whole lot of stuff with that in mind, or was it almost like you started building up your inventory after you opened?
Most of the inventory was built up after we opened. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the store didn't have the big footprint that it has now. It probably started at 5,000 square feet, 6,000, and then it just creeped into 26,000.
Oh, that's what it is currently.
Yeah, technically, yeah. And it just so there's just, it as things progressed, we kept taking over areas, and we had other renters there, other companies there. As they left, we would not re-rent; we would kind of consume or take over the areas. So, but yeah, that's definitely. It's amazing how like we started going to. So we went to some auctions. Like they used to have this interstate auction place down on off of 77. And I can't remember the guy's name, but he's since passed. But anyway, we bought a lot of stuff from them, and they were actually doing cleanouts, or like estate liquidations. Yeah. So we bought a lot of stuff there. It just and then we got a word on the street is like, oh, you can come there and sell grandma's this or whatever. And then people started, I don't even know if it's the internet that did this or what, they just started calling us saying, hey, I have a house full of stuff, come and help me, So, yeah.
Now, we mentioned all the vinyl albums that you guys have there for sale. Reminds me of a question that we often ask on the show, which is, how about you in music? And you mentioned the bank and some of the old downtown places. What kind of music were you into when you were younger, or now, for that matter?
Well, I used to, or I still do. I like the Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel. That's the stuff I grew up on.
Right.
Magic 105 when it was Magic 105, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Probably in the early '80s, mid '80s, would be like Walking Clampets and things like that for local bands that because they'd be playing at the bars that we would go to. Yeah. But I kind of missed most of the stuff coming, like
Akron sound stuff,
Bizarros and something like that. As they were formulating, I was kind of I was too young, and didn't really have the right, like clique of people around me, I guess, to get me exposed to it. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You say yes, I say no. You say stop, and I say
Yeah, that is the thing. I mean, when there's a music scene, you have to be almost kind of the exact age to be able to fit into it, that you're not too old or not, because you don't care about it anymore or whatever, or not too young, right? It's sort of a 5-year period there, maybe, something like that.
Well, what I notice is with music, it's usually the time period in your life where you don't really have a lot of commitments or direction.
Right.
And that formulates what you're interested in listening to probably until you're 70.
Yeah. The direction part's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I think I've been told that I'm a rarity, and I guess that would count for you as well, Nick, that we still kind of listen to new bands and stuff today, because most people, their tastes are formed by what they were listening to in high school.
Well, just the other day, you turned me on to a band called Wednesday.
Yeah.
Now, who the heck would, these young girls that sound like a, I mean, pretty cool.
I saw them because they opened for Guided by Voices for their big show in Dayton.
Still have room up there for a little bit of stuff,
Yeah.
Must be something. I've heard of them, so that's a good sign,
Yeah, check them out. They're good. They rock,
yeah, good deal.
Brad, do you have them here?
We do.
All right.
Yep.
The rain-rotted house on the dead-end of Bay Tree, or a better way to sleep.
So we're pushing Wednesday.
Yeah.
So as you accrued your inventory, I mean, I'm hoping that we're conveying to our listeners what is in the bomb shelter. So far, they have a Burt Reynolds lamp and a lot of albums and a lot of ashtrays with tires. But
no, you walk in there,
it's incredibly diverse what's there, and there's all kinds of beautiful furniture and
really cool mid-century modern stuff and
chairs,
other
sofas or whatever,
100-year-old washing machines.
Yeah.
One day I was in there. One day you had all these molds from a like a mold shop. I don't know if it was a rubber mold or whatever.
I think that might have been a foundry. If it was in the last 5 years, they've just since torn that one down. It's kind of sad, but that we haven't seen a whole lot of tire molds come in, which were the ones that people would put a mirror in the center of, and they're usually kind of look like a donut. The foundry molds tend to be silver in color because the release agent that they put on them. I think it's fairly harmless. It's probably zinc or aluminum or something. But some people make those into table bases, and I think they can make a great wall. If you put a couple of them together. We do have some of those still in back stock. We have a lot of back stock that sometimes it's hard to get out on the floor. But
yeah, my wife and my daughters and stepdaughters love the vintage shop you have there, vintage clothing.
Yeah, that is very and that's Allie's passion too. She loves clothing, and she's got a very good eye. And it's a particular eye. When I'm out on the field, I buy we pull the clothing we think that she'll like, and then we watch her break our hearts because she's like, nope, no, not that one. Yeah, that'll never see the light of day. And then we ship that stuff to Goodwill usually. Probably turned into rags. I'm not sure what they do with it, but and some of it will find a home. But yeah. But when you say the different sections of the store. It is set up kind of like we have like a library, a garden area, camping area. We're working on our fishing departments.
Really?
If you like fishing lures and things like that, we're going to do that. And that's partly because my father-in-law was president of Fred Arbogast. And,
really?
Yeah, so I have a lot of stuff that I'd like to some of it I just wanted to display, not really for sale. Just we'll throw it in there as not for sale.
Man.
Yeah, but he was president of that company for 30 years, and
that was locally owned.
Yep, it was a locally owned company founded in Akron, like Pfluger.
Yeah.
We were actually, strangely enough, the fishing lure capital of the world at one point too, pretty much. It's it is amazing how much came out of Akron and Ohio. And, Akron. I got this picture book last week from somebody came in and sold it to us. And it was printed by an etching company, a plating company, I think, in 1927. And it was page after page of all these huge, expansive buildings that were built, that even just dealt with carbon black and things for tires, rubber, foundries. We used to have Southfield Printing.
Oh, we were talking about that last week.
And then I think Warner Printing, I think that was the name of it, was the building that looked like an old castle that was torn down at 59 and Route 8, where that used to be an architectural firm. Yeah, which is sad because they shouldn't have torn that down. But there was just a ton of it. And then I'm looking in there and I'm going, there's no picture of the viaduct. Oh. Well, that wasn't there yet. First National Tower. Oh, that wasn't there yet.
Wow, that's how far back.
Yeah. I think it was 1927 was when it was printed, so it was probably a couple years earlier.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Jen Kidd, who's the manager of the Nightlight Cinema, on recently.
I love that place.
And it's a great theater. But we were talking with her, and she was talking about collecting all of these posters and things from all the many new movie theaters that were in Akron at that time. I mean, there's like 25, 30 that were all in the downtown area. And I'll bet you probably have some stuff from that era, I'm guessing. Maybe not.
It comes in a little bit. I would collect that stuff because the only theater in downtown that was still operating when I was working was the Civic.
Yeah,
and we played. I ran a lot of movies there. But the only other one was I think I can't remember what the porno.
Oh, the Astor.
Yeah, the Astor. Yeah,
I knew the name. What it is.
Yeah, and they were. I think they were very close to video by the time I was there. And then the art theater over in. I do have the motion picture projector, which is the Simplex 35 projector. Cool. It came out of the art.
Really?
Yeah. It was saved by Rich Perrine, who was another projectionist.
The Highland Square guy.
Yeah. He was in Highland Square.
He took some great pictures of the Bizarros in the mid '70s when he was working at the Highland Theater.
Oh, cool.
Some of the
Okay,
old
yeah.
pictures we have of us.
He was a longtime projectionist there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rich. Yeah, he's since passed, but he came up one day and said, "Hey, you want to buy this? I'm trying to find a home for it." He had a whole bunch of projection equipment and stuff like that, but I don't know why he picked that one. I guess it was in his car and he wanted to find a home for it.
Yeah.
So I just haven't had the heart to do anything with it. It just sits there and looks like a projector.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is your personal home, Kevin, decorated like the bomb shelter?
Not really quite as bad, but I have a globe fetish, so I have a lot of globes. Let's see what the things that annoy my wife. Globes. I seem to have gotten into the ceramic pink flamingos from the 50s and 60s, mainly 50s. I have an awful lot of those, TV lights and everything. And actually, she did get me one of those, so I guess I've won her over a little bit. And she doesn't like birds that much anyway. I do. I think probably the other thing would be cars, but and like the cars that are on display at the bomb shelter are my
They're
personal.
actually yours.
Yeah, they're mine. And they're not for sale, or usually not for sale, because I have this problem where I buy something and then I never get rid of it. And so
cars is one.
Yeah, cars can be one. Yes, I just keep figuring out how to move them around, and now I'm storing some in shipping containers.
Oh, really?
So, along with other stuff, the overstock. I figure, well, I'll just stuff it in there, and I won't have to think about it.
Well, you mentioned globes. Do you have any like really old ones, like real ancient?
I would say the oldest ones I have are probably from like 1947, 46, things like that. Yeah, but yeah, they look, the black. They're printed in black. We've had older ones.
I've seen those.
Yeah, they're neat because and I like the ones that have the little light bulb in them. They make great night lights. Yeah. So those are cool. It's just it's just something I like. Yeah. And then the other thing is I love those paintings that you could buy. Like if you were in Europe, and we actually went there. Went to France last year for a week or so. And the one thing I wanted to buy was a street artist, something from a street artist. And so I try to collect those from houses that, because people have a lot of interest in those because they remind them of their travels.
Sure.
And the ones from the like 50s and 60s are just beautifully done, and some of them are quite valuable, I guess, if you see them. And they're usually small because you can't take a huge painting on a thing, but I did find a really nice man. He did not speak much English, and I don't speak any French. My wife does, though. And we got ourselves an Eiffel Tower, a little one, maybe like about 1.5 feet high, foot, wide. And he carefully rolled it up for us and took a piece of paper and wrapped it up and all that. And 12 euros later, I felt like $1 million.
See.
Yeah. So, but yeah, those are definitely fun. Yeah. So
Sure.
Stuff like that. It's just, and the other thing at the bomb shelter that I love to collect is projects that people did in shop class.
Oh.
All the lamps, the little bookends, the memo holders. When I see those at a house or it's something that it was made or fabricated probably by a returning GI, because a lot of them process PTSD a lot different than they do today.
Trench art, right?
Yeah, trench art, or just even they made lamps, birdhouses, small tables. Let's just say the Shopsmith 5 or whatever was a big seller.
Yeah.
Back having a wood shop in your basement was the place you went to hide, and that's where you find the tire ashtray and what's left of a cigar. So, but to save those and we try to sell or clean them up and like rewire them if they're a lamp or whatever. And try to find a new home for them, because they usually have their name written on the bottom of them. It's just, and somebody put a lot of effort into it, and it's a shame that, that's the last thing that's left when a sale is done and they're getting ready to shovel it out the door.
Personal stuff that people wouldn't,
Yeah,
it's cool that you collect those. Yeah, there is a certain amount of rehabbing that needs to be done, right? When we were there, the Burt Reynolds lamp that you wanted, one of the guys there was Steve, was rewiring it, I know, working on that. And I imagine a lot of stuff that comes in needs a little...
Depends on the value, though, right? If it's something that somebody would really want, you'd put the time and effort. Like Burt Reynolds, you'd probably just clean that one up, just
Yeah, that was a
joke.
Yeah, that's a sad looking lamp. A lot of that stuff that I'm sure came from a carnival.
Yeah.
You've got the ring on the thing. Pick any one of these. Usually it's like a ceramic bank or chalkware, I guess is a better term. And that's what I think Elvis is, or Burt Reynolds is. But it is definitely one of those terrible, or a 5 and dime store item. Like Ben Franklin back in the day.
Right.
You know what I noticed too, over the years I've been going there, you buy a lot of letters, like big J's, big N's, and all different sizes and colors. And we could never find a J, for my wife. We were looking for one, But so people are really into that, huh?
Well, I think that's kind of a changing direction. I mean, we still sell a lot of letters, but if you go back like 10 years ago, industrial was a lot more powerful. People were definitely doing a lot more in industrial, like tables, hangings, making industrial-looking lamps and things like that. That is not, and then also putting letters, spelling out things on the wall and things like that. And we still have some of that, but that is definitely not. That's not the big like part of the pie.
Like it was.
Yeah, like it was. Yeah, it's moved more into the kitschy, vintagey clothing, vintagey furniture, that kind of mid-century, almost like brushing up against the hippie kind of that, that era. And I think that because that's a little more fun, I think, you can throw bright colors at it and stuff like that. But that's you got to look at this as like a wave in time.
Oh yeah,
and it's cresting as it moves forward, and you're on the crest like the surfer, I guess, would be.
Yeah.
For you hope for as long as you need to be.
Yeah.
But we never know when that crest it'll break.
Right.
And that is something I think that like even in Akron, you look at the antique stores like Stagecoach and all these ones that have closed. It's just partly it was because they just weren't hitting that sweet spot anymore, and the clientele they had, was aging out, and it's just a big problem everywhere. I think for any type of business.
Yeah.
It's just some have long, like even restaurants can have that issue, where
Sure.
after a while the food is just not trendy food,
Right.
and you can have a pretty short existence.
It's really interesting. So it's like the past still moves in trends in a way.
It does, well, it's following
still alive.
us. Yeah, and we may not want. You can say it's chasing us.
Yeah.
And we do, so we just need to know what we can put at it to get the most value and find the most items a new home.
Right.
We're trained by the people that come visit us.
Yeah.
They will
Or what they're looking for.
Yeah, what they're looking for. If they're not interested in it, it sits, and we move on to something else. We have a pretty good eye. I mean, there's very few things that we can't find a home for that we buy, because we don't go into a house and like clean it all out and then say we're going to find a home for every item here.
Yeah.
We have to be selective ourselves. And to make sure that the store looks right and people, because everything has to look like it has a reason to be there, or it's part of a club, so that people feel like I want to be part of that club.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I'm excited about the trend moving into this hippie stuff, and I'm of course thinking of you, Nick.
Yeah.
We got to get you into some groovy threads.
Well, my wife's bought quite a few there.
I'm seeing you in a big floppy hat. But anyway, poor Nick.
Yeah.
I bought a lot of stuff there, man.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate it.
Well, it's a great place. The Bomb Shelter is truly a one of a kind.
One of a kind, unique
business, and I think it's so interesting, Kevin, how you say that you actually view it as sort of it's a business, but it's a museum in a way too. I mean, you're fine with people should feel free just to come by and just have a look, right? I mean, you're not, going to be breathing down their neck, trying to sell them something. You'll probably find something that they want to buy, actually. But But yeah, that's really interesting.
Or tell
Yeah,
other
great.
people, those people come
Sure,
back.
right.
It's just cool.
Well, we've had before COVID. I mean, we haven't had any since that I can know of. And sometimes things sneak in, but we'll have tour buses, which I mean, like not big tour buses, like an assisted living
Yeah.
place. We'll have a bunch of people come over, and they'll walk through. Now they're not a big. It's great to talk to them and see how the stuff lightens their day.
It's like a memory awakener.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But a few of them do buy little, like gloves or just things that you wouldn't expect.
Right.
They will buy.
Oh, my mom, she's gone now, but if she'd been there, I guarantee you she would have bought stuff. She definitely would have.
Oh, I know. It just the stuff just makes us feel some comfort sometimes, and
absolutely.
It fills holes that of how we're running through the or being in front of the wave, I guess, through time. So
yeah. I'm wanting to go there right now. They're closed today, though.
Yeah.
But
well, we'll be open 11 on Thursday again. Yeah. It'll be fun. Yeah.
Well, Kevin, it's been great having you on. I do have to ask one, because we're running low on time here, but this is sort of your mission now, right? I mean, you figure that you'll be there and this will be your place, and then do you think about the future, like if someone will take it over eventually at some time? Or, I mean, it's such a unique place,
Yeah, somebody's going to have to. I mean, I probably got a good 10 years left in me, but
Sure.
It is my end game. I don't have. I mean, I'm partially retired. My wife is partially retired, so we've been very fortunate with our existence. So
Yeah.
It is. It definitely is. That's the big problem, and that was also a problem with my previous business with the furniture company. It was something that was difficult, even though it was profitable when it closed. It's difficult to find somebody who has the same passion, vision on a small business like that to move
Right.
it forward. That's the reason why franchises tend to, they tend to work better because they're so regimented and everything is, orderly But there's just so many moving parts in a business like this, or any independent business that has a generational issue
Right.
coming up against it.
Mm-hmm.
My son, he's in college now and going into engineering management or something.
Mm-hmm.
He likes some things, but we have completely different tastes. He doesn't see the vision there. I think he's kind of amazed. It's like, well, how does this stuff even like sell and find a home?
Right,
And my car, the cars I like are like 60s French cars,
Yeah.
Citroens,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah, cool ones, yeah.
or oddball cars like I have a Yugo or something like that.
Yeah.
He's part of the Japanese car crowd, where they do all the, they all want. He has a 300ZX, a '96 300ZX, and so that it's just he's part of the generational problem I'm even having,
Right,
right. Yeah, so yeah, but I'm sure it's going to find a home someday, and I try not to. I try to let it run itself to a point, so it kind of trains itself, and the people are there can maybe try to find a solution to a problem on their own,
Right.
and so we'll see how it goes. But maybe we can do like a ESOP or something. It's there's got to be some way to keep something like that running in Akron, I think.
Yeah, well, and, you mentioned franchises, but I mean, that's what is so great about the bomb shelter. That place has a personality of its own.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely unique, and it is really just a wonderful business to have in Akron. It's such a one of a kind. And
thank you so much for
it's
being
been
here
great.
with
And
us
I'm also
today.
really glad to hear about the guy who collects stoves, because the next time my wife or kids are giving me a hard time about my books or my records, I'm going to be, well, at least it's not stoves.
We can start selling your refrigerators.
Refrigerators are next. Kevin Royer of the Bomb Shelter, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks a million.
And this has been From Akron and Beyond, and we'll see you next time.